All right. Hey, magic makers. So many people say in order to lose weight, you have to be in a calorie deficit. And I truly believe that. You do have to be in a calorie deficit. But what does that mean? And this year, I'm going to do my best to kind of break apart some of the things that we as fitness professionals, we just kind of throw out these words and we just assume what the hell we're talking about. So instead of just throwing out words, let me just break it down for you. And again, if there are other, conversations you want to have, raise your hand and be like, girl, I don't even know whatever it is that you don't know what means. Just hit me up. I would love to know that. So that way I can really take a little bit of a deeper dive into these topics for you. So let's first talk about calorie. Like, what the hell is a calorie? A calorie was measured in a lab, and it basically heated up a unit of food, and it said this is how much energy it burned. So it's just us giving vocabulary to energy that is in food. There it is. So one of the big things I don't like about calories is that in a lab, an apple doesn't work the same in my body. In a lab, they're not putting an apple with a yogurt with some chia seeds and seeing what the impact is on that. And for many people, I don't know if you've heard about net calories or net carbs. That's what it is, net carbs. That kind of thing makes me nuts because it's like they're not doing that stuff in a lab. It's some marketing person saying, well, fiber adds more bulk to food. So that means that the carbs aren't having as much of an effect on your body. How do you know? Show me the science. Show me the science. So I want you to think about calories is just a way to measure energy that is in food. And so that what people have translated is that, and I know many people can say this to me, that it takes 3,500 calories to burn, 3,500 calories to lose a pound, right? So many of you guys can recite that. And then so many people are like, it's 500 calories a day, and that's how I'm going to lose weight. However, right, if I take in an extra 2,000 calories, I'm going to gain a pound. So there's I'm going to say this happy medium that it's harder to lose the weight than it is to gain the weight. Yeah, sucks out loud. So for those of you who are practically starving themselves to lose this weight, it can be really fucking hard. And let's just put this out on the table. If you've been listening to my podcast for as long as I've been doing the podcast, or if you're fresh here, I do not candy coat anything because, girl, we are over 40. We ain't got time. We have spun our wheels and now we just need to just hit the ground running. So here's what I know. It is going to take you longer than you think. Gone are the days that you're losing 1 to 2 pounds a week. I'm sorry. I just don't want you to set yourself up and be frustrated. You're no longer going to lose 1 to 2 pounds a week. It is possible to overeat healthy foods. Many women come to me and their diet is just fabuloso. It is not littered with Taco Bell and McDonald's and Chick-fil-A and ice cream. No, it is very good. However, hard fact I had to learn, no matter how clean you eat, no matter how many times you go to Whole Foods, no matter how many organic, whatever you're eating, it's possible to still overeat healthy, clean food. And lastly, you are going to want to quit. You're going to get so bleeping frustrated that you are just going to want to kick the wall and be like, I'm out. I'm just out. So how does it start? I like to think about calories as your bank account, right? How many of you don't look at your bank account? Many of you can look at your phone right now and be like, oh, a charge just went through from this place and a charge just went through from that place and a charge, you know your stuff, like you are on it. And that's what we're doing with our food. Now, here's what I know. Many people are like, oh, okay, I'm tracking my food. I can't. It kills me. I feel you. Am I asking you to track your food for the rest of your natural born life? No. What I'm asking is, how do we start to track our foods for now, just to understand where we are, right? I have to start where I am. I need to know, what am I putting into my mouth? Now, if that is too much for you, I ask you to track one thing. So let's see how many vegetables I'm putting into my body. So every time I eat a fruit or a vegetable, track that. Every time I eat a protein, track that. So if I track at least those two things, it gives me a gauge for where I am, where there's room for improvement, or maybe I'm rocking it. I don't know. But it also helps us develop patterns because maybe I find that I had a bad day and I'm eating more. I had a great day. I'm eating more. I didn't sleep. I'm eating more. I had a great workout and I'm just like ravenous. So those are the things that we're looking for so that we can start to strategize where our food goes. All right. And so the more we become aware of what we eat, we can start to get our appetite and our eating patterns under control. And I know there's some people who listen to me like, Kim, I think about food from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed. I feel you. And that's a very different thing. And, you might, I want to say you might want to have a conversation with someone because that is a long time thing. And that's beyond my scope. But I want you to start thinking about, is it time to have a conversation with a professional about that? Um, because that for a lot of people, food obsession, there's a borderline between where it is kind of controlling it with our habits. And then maybe sometimes it's a conversation where someone with a little bit more professional guidance can be that support for you. And if you feel that way, do me a favor, just reach out for me and I can do my best to point you in the direction of people who can support you if in that regard. All right. So as we're starting to want to start to think about how do we practice kind of like calorie control. And this is what I know. Starvation doesn't work. Skipping meals only triggers cravings and binges further down the line. And so, one of my clients who were in the last round of the belly fat code, I was like, write down your food. Well, she was intermittent fasting. She didn't eat, she was a group fitness director. She was a group fitness instructor. She was intermittent fasting. She would have a protein shake to break her fast. And then she would have popcorn in the middle of the day, bowls and bowls of skinny popcorn. And then she would have dinner. And she was like, God, like, I just feel like I'm always hungry. I'm starving. And I'm like, you are. That skinny popcorn is not feeding you. It as I look, I'm looking at it, it's like you have that protein shake in the morning and you have this great dinner, but in the middle of the day, you're just feeding yourself like nothing. Like there's absolutely no redeeming quality about popcorn. And you're teaching, 10, 15 classes a week. Like your body is like begging for food because of your activity level. So skipping meals is not the answer. Even though you had a protein shake and you're having a great dinner, that's 2 meals out of your whole day. And many of you listening probably aren't as busy as she was. So I want you to start think about, am I skipping meals? And am I skipping them on purpose or am I grazing throughout the day? Maybe it's I'm having a handful of popcorn here and a handful of nuts here and a rice cake here versus sitting down and having like an actual meal. Or the other thing is I hear women, and I know that I hear this is the clean the plate club, right? As you grew up, you were conditioned that you had to eat everything on your plate, or you couldn't have dessert, or you couldn't leave the table, or what have you. And I feel that, and depending on what era you grew up in, there were starving people in India, Africa, China, wherever, and you were just being wasteful. I get that and I understand that. So one of the ways to combat the must clean my plate, take smaller amounts. There's always more. Like that's the one thing I want people, especially if you're a food obsession kind of person, there's always more, right? There's always more. And that's one of the things that stopped me from like just always feeling like I had to like eat was I just had to start thinking about there's always more. Now, for other people, it might not be as simple as that. It might not be, a reframing, and I understand that, and I'm sensitive to that. And I just want you to know that you're like easy for you to say. I feel you. I was an eye roller too, but I want you to start to think to yourself like, I can take a smaller amount and then know that I can always go back for seconds versus feeling like I need to eat everything on my plate because of, being part of the clean the plate club. Also eating slowly, and I've told this story before and it was very eye-opening for me was that um, I did a meditation class, and my friend Gina, she gave everyone a Hershey kiss, the little kiss wrapped in foil. So she said, okay, it's gonna take us 15 minutes to eat this Hershey kiss. And you're like, the Hershey kiss is like, maybe 2 bites and you're done. So she said, okay, first just look at it. Then we smell it. And then we slowly unwrap it. And then she's like, smell it again, lick it, put it in your mouth, but don't bite. Just like let it sit there and like melt on your tongue. And it was her slowing down the food process, because how many of us sometimes eat and we don't even recall the taste of our food? And you're probably like, Kim, what does that have to do with about calorie? Well, many of us consume our calories because we're not being in the moment. We're not like sitting there. We're scrolling on our phone, or we're, engaged in like such, a discussion that we just aren't taking the time to savor the bites. And so the big thing is like, take a bite, put my food down, like slow it down. Think of it as like food foreplay, make it nice and slow. Because studies show that it takes 20 minutes for what happens in our brain to tell our stomach, or sorry, what happens in our stomach to tell our brain, hey, this is filling, this is filling. And so as we like scarf it down, sometimes like after that, like initial like scarf down, we might feel a little sick because we ate a little bit too much, we ate a little bit too fast, and our body's just trying to like adjust to what we put in the stomach. So here is where, it's like working to find that middle ground. Again, it's going to be slower. Like I know that you want to just nail it. You're like, I want to listen to this podcast, go out and do the steps, nail it, and just be like, all right, boom, next on my list. And sadly, that's not how it works. For many of us, what we need to do is just kind of absorb this and say, where am I? Right. So it could just be me writing down my food for a couple of weeks. Great. Awesome. And then it's like, okay, maybe I notice a pattern. Maybe I'm like, hey, Kim mentioned that I could always reach out to her and she can help me out. Absolutely. Right. Because as I share this information, there's some of you who are self-guided. Great. Love it. And there's some of you who are just like, I have been spinning my wheels for a really long time. And maybe it is time to raise my hand, because I know that everyone listening here, you've been dieting for a long time. And but sometimes that person over your shoulder, just to be like, oh, did you notice this? Did you notice that? And trust me, from time to time, I hire a coach because I need that. I need a little like, oh, have you noticed that this is creeped up, or that's creeped up, or, what are you doing over there in the weight department? Like that stuff, it's really good. It's just like we all need that kind of audit, if you will. When I was in corporate, I worked for a public company, and every quarter we had an audit. And it wasn't because that our accounting department sucked. I mean, it was federally mandated, but however, but it wasn't because of it was just kind of like, what's going on here? Let's have that second set of eyes, just kind of give it an audit. And that's all right. Having an audit is fabulous because it helps you move past, especially when you feel like you're spinning, 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 spinning. So when I eat, put my fork down, take a couple bites, put my fork down, chew, right? I think there was something like, chew 20 or 30 times. Feel free to do that, but just chew your food. Like, don't chop it down in 2 bites. Like just pause, chew, enjoy, relish the flavors that are coming in your food. So, you know, the big thing with calories is that we want to choose calories that are going to help us stay full. And so when I normally say calories, so many people want to dramatically cut back their calories. And when I dramatically cut back their calories, it is going to bite you in the ass. Trust me. Trust me. It will always bite you in the ass. And it's not this like, there's no magic calorie number for everyone. For so many people, they're like 1,200 calories. And brutal honesty, I'm like, for a lot of people, unless you weigh 100 pounds, 1,200 calories is way too little. And you will always feel hungry unless you've just trained yourself to be at that 1,200 calorie level. And, I just want to always ask, like, how is your energy level? How's your hunger? How's your energy? How are your cravings? And so as we work through this podcast, I want to, show you that yes, being in a calorie deficit is exactly where we want to be. One, two, how do we stay full in this calorie deficit? Because maybe if I track my calories, I'm more like 2,000 calories eating, and I should be at 1,600 calories. And so how do I account for that 400 uh, calorie deficit and still feel full? So how do I do that? And don't worry, I'm going to teach you how to calculate all of this. But I'm just like saying, okay, when I dive into that number, I don't want anyone to be like clutching their pearls and be like, oh my God, what should I do? So first things first, and many of you undereat this, and many of you will grab your pearls when I tell you the number or when you calculate the number for protein that you should be eating. So first, protein is your bestie. Fruits and vegetables come next. And, I don't want to hear fruit has sugar in it. This is natural sugar. It is not, I'm not asking you to go out and have like those, I don't know if they still make them, but they used to make these like jellied candies that will like cut like orange slices, cut like lemon slices. I don't know if they still make that, but it was literally sugar coated. I'm not asking you to go out and buy that. That is sugar. I'm asking you to go out and have true fruit. It came off of a tree. It came out of a root, it dug from the ground, whatever. I'm asking you to have fruits and vegetables because as a woman over 40, you're going to need that fiber. That fiber is going to what is going to help pull out the extra estrogen, the extra cholesterol, and help us eliminate it from our body. Second, or I'm sorry, I think about three. Carbs. Carbs are your best friend. I hate when people are like, I'm just gonna cut my carbs and go keto. No, the hell you are, not on my watch. Carbs are what keep you thinking. When I was doing fitness competitions, the last week of the show of getting ready for the show is when I had to really like tamper down my carbs. But it was only for a week, 5 days. And I was getting on stage for a competition. I wasn't being like, oh, I just want to fit into my skinny jeans that I wore 20 years ago. It was for a athletic event. And then I went back to normal eating. So carbs are your best energy source. And what I'm going to tell you this is that carbs chase water. So if I dump my carbs, it feels good because when I step on that damn scale, boop, it goes down. However, when I bring carbs back in, that scale is going to go back up because carbs like water. And so for every gram of carbs that I have in my body, I take 2 grams of water. Sleep and stress, they are interchangeable because if I am not sleeping or I'm stressed like a mofo, I might be one of those people who are an overeater, or I'm going to be someone who doesn't eat. You decide, you know who you are in a stressed out state, in a sleep state. So let's, focus on those two things. And then beverages, I see it all the time. You go to a Starbucks, a Dunkin' Donuts, any coffee shop, and they're ordering the Mocha Loco Laca and the largest size they have, and it's just riddled with empty calories. Now don't get me wrong, from time to time, yeah, I have one of those things, but it's not an every morning kind of thing that you're having one of those types of drinks. All right, so how do we break into creating this calorie start to break down into this calorie deficit? First is that we start by saying how many calories do we really need, okay? So I want you to take your goal body weight and multiply it by 12. Now, if you're someone who has a lot of weight to lose, I want you to take the first 10 pounds. So I'm making this up. So say if you're 200 pounds and you want to be 100 pounds, okay? And honestly, if you are 200 pounds, you want to be 100 pounds, I'm going to ask you, when was the last time you were 100 pounds? If the last time you were 100 pounds was like when you were in your 20s or in high school, how about we cut that in half and say you want to get it down to 150 pounds so that we have a 50-pound weight loss, and then we can reevaluate from there. Okay. So if I was at 200 pounds, let's say I wanted to I'm going to bring myself down to 180 pounds. Okay. So I'm going to take 180 times 12. So 180 times 12 is 2160 calories. Okay. So that is the calorie goal that I'm going to be shooting for. Now I'm going to calculate how much protein I'm going to eat. So I'm going to take that goal weight, 180, and I'm going to multiply by 1, and that gives me 180 grams. So I'm shooting to have 2100 calories roughly and 180 grams of protein. And so how I would go about doing this in creating my meals is that I would go in and I would say, okay, 180 grams, how can I achieve that goal? Now, for so many of you, you'll be like, "Oh my God, 180 grams, that seems like a lot." Yeah, it is. It's a lot to start. But maybe we kind of start with our good, better, best. So maybe we start with like, if I can get 100 grams, 150, 180, right? So we can start to kind of stair step our way to that 180 um, goal, and focus on protein being the builder of your plate, right? So as I'm building my plate, we talked about, protein is your bestie, and then we kind of bring in kind of like your second layer of besties being the carbs of, the fruits and vegetables, and then we bring in those good fats to round out our calories. So people will say, well, how many meals is that? Now, many of you might have, gone the bro science way that I did. When I first started losing weight, if I didn't have 5 meals a day, the sky was going to open up and the lightning bolts would come out of it. And, there has been no science. And if you've seen a study, please let me know. But there's no science that 5 meals a day is the holy grail. There's no science. And one of the things that I've seen, especially for women over 40, is that as we move into that perimenopausal, menopausal phase, insulin resistance builds up. And that's primarily because we're feeding too much. And so for many of the women that I work with, I recommend that they have anywhere from 3 to 4 meals a day. Now, there are outliers out there who I have, my shift workers who are working, the 7 to 7 shift, and they're doing heavy lifting. Like my nurses are out there. So they're moving patients around, they're walking a lot. I have a woman who actually works in like a floral nursery, right? So she's walking a lot. So there's different, outliers, but for the bulk of the people who are, sitting in an office every day, 3 to 4 meals a day pretty much is your sweet spot. And, many of you will probably be like, well, Kim, what about intermittent fasting? Agreed. Intermittent fasting has gotten a lot of praise from a lot of big menopausal names out there, and they swear by it. Now, for me, I think it's helpful, but it's not the end all for many. And for many people who already have disordered eating, this might just lean right into your disordered eating. And I think, and I have intermittent fasting, so I don't want you to be like, I can't, for me, I can't talk about it unless I tried it. And for me, when I first started working through all of my menopausal issues, I intermittent fasted as a way to break me from eating by the clock. I was a huge clock eater, and intermittent fasting was how I was able to open up my windows between food and really learn, was I really hungry? Now, I do believe in, shutting down your kitchen at a specific time. So, and when I say that, it's not like, don't eat after 6 o'clock. That's bullshit. Whenever your last meal is of the day, that is the last meal. Kitchen is closed, right? Lock it up. So for me, I work on Monday and Tuesday night. So my last meal is like 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. So if I were to follow the intermittent fasting guidelines and to close the kitchen at 6, I'd be freaking starving because a lot of my energy happens from 6 to 9. So it wouldn't really work for me. And, I had this conversation with a client of mine. She's in the same boat. She's a group fitness instructor. And she was like, hey, Kim, I'm doing the 12-6 workout, 12-6 fasting. But she's like, I'm starving all the time. And I'm like, well, when's your last class? And she's like, my last class, she teaches, she taught at 6:30 and she taught at 7:30. And I was like, so you're eating, your last meal is like at 5 so that you can teach the 6:30 class. And then you're actively teaching this spin class. And then you're actively teaching a second spin class. I'm like, and you're starving, like, duh. So when it comes to intermittent fasting, we have to make the schedule work for us. And so for many of you, just shutting down the kitchen after your last meal. So for me, my last meal on Monday and Tuesday, I finish eating at 9 and I don't eat again until 9 the next morning. However, if I know that I'm going in and I'm doing like a heavy lift, like if I know that it's leg day, or I look at where I am in my periodized program, and I'm doing I'm focusing in on the strength portion where I'm only lifting 5 reps 5 times, like 5 reps 5 rounds, then that means I'm lifting heavy weight. So I'm like, you know what, I want some energy in my tank. So energy in my tank doesn't have to be um like a big meal. For me, a half a protein bar works like a charm. I live, um, if I do, from time to time, I do go to a gym and I live like 20 minutes from the gym. So I eat that protein bar on my way out the door. And so by the time I'm ready to actually like, I get to the gym, change my clothes and lift, that protein bar has digested. A half a protein shake, just a little bit, something in your stomach, BCAAs, something that um, just in your stomach, so that you get to have that power on board. There's no, I know there another bro science here that was like, oh, if you work out on a fasted stomach, tap into your fat stores. Believe it or not, the science doesn't support that. The science says that, the glycogen that we have run around in our bloodstream from our liver pretty much gets used up overnight, and that the glucose that we do have comes from our muscles. So we think we're burning excess fat, and we're really not doing that. We're not tapping into those fat stores at all. And many of us have trained ourselves to like not eat in the morning or not be hungry. And I challenge you, like if I'm hungry in the morning, eat. Like have that half a protein bar and see how it feels. See how it feels for you. Because intermittent fasting is that I want you to have gaps between your meals so that we start to learn how to feel hungry versus it's 10:30, it's time to eat, because like, you've kind of been like Pavlov's dogs, right? So I want you to think more about that. And so if you want to talk more about intermittent fasting, do me a favor, um, hit me up in the DMs. I am working on a intermittent fasting specific podcast for later in the year. So stay tuned on that. So, and when it comes to meals, I recommend, anywhere from 3 to 4. If you're someone who is one of those outliers and you have like a very active job, you might be up there at 5, 6 meals. It really all depends on you. And that's, definitely something that, as a coaching client, you and I would like work to see what to dial in where your meals are and so forth. So how do you choose those meal, excuse me, how do you choose those meal, excuse me, how do you choose those meal patterns? So like I mentioned, for people earlier, work out earlier in the morning, you've used a lot of energy in the morning. So maybe your breakfast and your lunch are bigger, but maybe you're someone who works out at night. So maybe your lunch and your snack before you head into the workout are bigger. And so it's just kind of like, look at like how you go, like how you range. I'm a morning workout, and I know that some days, like if I like have like a heavy lift, my breakfast, I need to power pack that with protein and some carbs, or I'm starving. And, that those are just like observations that I've made like over the years. And I want you to start to just make those same observations, because what worked for us 10 years ago isn't working for us now. Sorry, not sorry. Like we have to start to really start to key into like what our bodies need for us now versus looking at some like old outdated rule book that isn't giving us the results that we want. And if you are getting the results that you want, cool. But if you're not, here's where, I encourage you that maybe it's time to take a marker to that rule book that you've been following and start to make some adjustments to that. I'm going to talk about water, but all of us know that water. So one of the biggest things I always tell people is that, they're like, I know everyone's like 8 glasses of water a day. This has been drilled into us for a million years. But the biggest thing I want you to think about is like, think about your goal weight. So if my goal weight is 100 pounds, I want to have 100 ounces of water. And how do I get 100 ounces of water on board? you know, I can walk around with those big giant, 100 ounce, big gallon water bottles. Great. And if that's for you, great. Or, for me, I keep it simple. So this thing right here that I'm holding up that you can't see on the podcast, it has 30 ounces of water. I know that if I drink 3 of these, I'm 10 away from my goal. And that's really simple math for me. Drink 3 of these, Kim, and you are good. That's that's where that's where I live, that I have 100 ounces of water. 9 out of 10, I use about 4 of those. So I want you to start thinking about, what does that look like? What does your water intake look like for you? And are you doing it on a consistent basis? Now, when it comes to calorie deficit, many people will be like, well, how do I burn it off? And I know that that's, what we were taught, like, calories in, calories out. To a point, to a point. And I know all of us have some type of apparatus that tells us how many calories we burn, our Apple Watches or our Fitbits or whatever. So the machine that you're on, the machine that you're on probably hasn't been calibrated since they took it out of the box ever X many years ago when they got said treadmill, elliptical, what have you. Same thing, Peloton, the whole bit. Like they do a good job of guesstimating. Everything you look at is a great job of guesstimating. However, this is how calories actually break down. All right. So if this is out of 100%, out of 100%, 70% of the calories you burn on a daily basis are just for you to live. Like, so if I sat still and I didn't do anything, it's just to have me breathe, blink my eyes, get up and out of a chair. That's called BMR, your basal metabolic rate. And so this is like your base level. Like this is for you to do absolutely nothing but just to like exist. Like if you were just to like lay in your bed, this is how many calories you would have to take in to keep your body alive. Okay. Then the second biggest part of calories you burn is from acts of daily living, right? So that's why people are like, get in your steps, fidget, move, what have you. And for those of you looking at the YouTube video, like you see, I use my hands a lot to talk. I fidget, that's, what you are, acts of daily living. I remember when I first started on this journey, I used to live like a half mile from the bus stop. And I would, I remember telling my trainer, I'm like, oh, I live a half mile from the bus stop. He's like, doesn't count. And I'm like, what? It does count. Those acts of daily living, those count. And this is the one place that I like really saw it glaringly. So I teach group fitness. When Rona hit and we were told to stay home, I used to walk probably 20,000 steps a day. Didn't even think twice about it. It's just what I did, like 20,000 steps. We were told to stay our butts home. I was doing 5,000 steps a day. I lost 15,000 steps just from my life, my acts of daily living. So I wanted you to know that it does add up. Those steps do add up. So if you aren't having those acts of daily living, if you work in like a corporate environment, one of the biggest things when I did work in corporate was that I went to the bathroom the furthest from my desk. There was one around the corner. I went to the opposite side of the building to go to the bathroom. I went to the opposite side of the room, the building, to get water. I took the stairs, right? I didn't park at the closest parking spot. I parked further away. All these little things, yeah, they add up because 20% of the calories you burn come from acts of daily living. 10% come from food, right? So the thermogenic effect of food, 10% just my digestive system just churning up the food that I gave it. And the more fibrous foods I give, I'm definitely going to hit that 10%. And then we have actual exercise. So this is like you physically going to the gym and checking off that workout. So half that, you're walking and your actual exercise. It's double the walking. So that's why we hear so much about walking. That's why we hear so much about the acts of daily living. But also, this is one of the things I see it. I just got back from visiting my family in Florida, and I see what happens when you don't move. move it or lose it. And I know this is morbid and no one wants to talk about it, no one wants to think about it, but hell, it's coming for you. And trust me, I want to walk around unassisted. My grandmother's 102 years old and she only uses a cane. She doesn't have a hump in her back. That's my goal. Like OC Barnes, you are my goal. And how I get that right fucking now. Right. So make sure I'm getting in my walks because, how many of you want to be able to get up and walk outside and get your mail, walk your dog, play with your grandkids, play with your great grandkids. That's how you do it. Move it or lose it. Right. Walking is that's why walking is simple. Yeah. Boring as hell for some people. But, I know that when I first started walking and I was told to walk, I literally rolled my eyes. I was like, are you kidding me? But now I found it's my time. And the days that like I want to go for a walk and it's like raining today, I'm like, dang, I want to go for a walk so bad, but I can't. I pop in my headphones, I listen to a podcast or just get lost in my thoughts. It's Kim time. And over the last few years, Kim time has become like just so valuable to me. So so valuable to me. The other way I can boost in my accept or in my exercise area, the big thing I can boost to get a nice, fantastic physique, burn some more calories and push out the fat, strength training. All right. And I know so many people hear strength training. I get it. But there's a reason. 3 to 5 days a week, strength training. But start where you are. I want to lift heavy weights, but heavy is relative. The last 2 to 3 reps feel challenging but doable. That's where we start and see, as we work our way through the periodized workout, can I start lifting heavy weights? Again, same for adding on to our longevity is that you want to be able to like stand up from a chair without having to, press on the sides of the chair to get up. Hell, get off a toilet, get yourself out of a car. I see so many people struggle doing that. And these are the things that like strength training will really help you. So many people like, I want a six-pack abs. No, I want to get off the fucking toilet. Like that's a goal. If six-pack abs is for you, great. But I want to ask you, when you're 90, is that six-pack going to get you off the damn toilet? No, it's not. So really focusing on like, let's start strength training now so that we can start building into that we have longevity versus, I just want to look hot. Let's kind of think about how do we actively live? And if that's your goal, and I don't want anything you to think I'm making light of it, but I really want for those people who are like kicking the can down the road is going to end and you want to make sure you're lifting. I remember, or this is probably a couple weeks ago. This wasn't probably, it was a couple weeks ago. I'm visiting my family and they live in an active adult community. And my husband and I are in the gym working out. And this woman, I'm going to say she was like 70. She's like pushing like 35 on the bench press. And I was like, you go. Yeah, girl, that's what I want to see. And so then she's pushing 35s. And I was like, then I got to push 40s. Like it just was like, if she can do that at 75, that's, she's my girl. And I look at other like strong actresses. Like I look at like Tina Turner, Angela Bassett, like they are just like Angelina Jolie. They are just like Madonna. They're just strong, right? They just have like this strong presence. And that's what I want to have. That's what I want you to have as we work our way to as we work our way through this whole active aging thing. That's active aging, it's not the collagen, in my coffee. It's the can I lift heavy shit? Because strength training is essential to improve our muscle tone, but it also gives us that pushes up that basal metabolic rate. Because if that basal metabolic rate, the one that like really burns the bulk of calories, that means I can eat more, right? I'm burning more calories at rest. So adding these things into your daily routine. Do you have to be at the gym for 90 minutes? No, 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 no. This is something you could do. Like lately, I've been doing like 20 to 30 minute workouts and you can crush it if you're choosing heavy enough weights. And so how do we start to, add in walks into our daily living? How do we start to, break the cycle of being us, break the cycle of doing something different? Right. So here I've given you, a lot of things to think about today, right? We've talked about, why a calorie deficit. We've talked about what to do, how to calculate that, all that fabulousness. But how do I know it's working? Feel you. I got that. So for 30 days, right? So today's day one. For the next 30 days, nail my nutrition 80% of the time. Right. So 80% of the time, I'm doing my best to get in whatever I calculated for my protein, doing my best to get to come as close to that calorie number that I calculated, right? Boom. That's where we're heading. Then I check once a week, okay? Once a week, not every day. Once a week. Let's see, I'm not I know I don't want you to do this, but I know many of you can't help yourself. Hop on the scale, see what's happening. Check my body weight measurements. How's my hunger? How's my energy? How's my craving? Am I finding myself being able to lift more weight? If I started with 12-pound bicep curls, am I doing 15-pound bicep curls? Right. So just see what my progress looks like over 30 days. And then if there's any tweaks. And when I say tweaks, it's not like go from making this number up. I think I said it was like 1800 calories. So let's say we're tracking to 1800 calories. I'm going to slash it to 1000 calories. No, it's like, okay, we started with 1800 calories. I did 80% of the time I was having 1800 calories. Great. Awesome. Now, maybe we say, let's see what 1700 calories look like for you. And maybe that's the number. But then I also look at my protein. Was I having 20 grams of protein, or was I having more like 120 grams of protein? So we start to get data, right? Versus emotion to make decisions. And so if you're like, you don't want to be your own coach, raise your hand. That's what I do. I'm really good at it. I don't know. I think I am really good at it. I'm not going to say I think, I know I'm very good at it. So if you need that help, that support, don't be afraid to raise your hand. Like, why struggle and go for it on your own? Because these things are is what's going to take to boost your metabolism. Because I see so many people like, well, my metabolism tanked when I turned 40. No, your metabolism didn't tank when you turned 40. You just are not doing the things you need to do now in your 40s that are going to give you that nice boost of metabolism. It's not avoiding sugar. It's not avoiding seed oils. It's really focusing in on dialing in my protein, taking out the extra fluff, adding in strength training, and you are going to be in really good shape. Because most people hate, the words diet and exercise. They hate calorie counting. But if I'm truly wanting to make weight loss effortless, I got to get this part dialed in. This is starting to nail my basics. And when I get my basics nailed in, boom, this can become effortless. And I truly, truly believe that. So, ladies, if you are looking for some support, I got you. Always want to help you. I always want you to not feel like you're in this constant battle against yourself, constant battle of dieting. Like, that's not life, right? That's not life. We spend too much time living by, is this a good food or is this a bad food, and demonizing every damn thing I do. You are doing what you can do. You're doing fabulous, this or something better, and trust me, you don't have to live your life dieting. There is something better. All right, magic makers, enjoy the rest of your day, and I will be in your ears next week.